I'm going to start a new series, which I'm calling the Open Source Boat. I'm working on outfitting something for charter that is in the, let's say, 50 to 65 foot range. Thinking about what I want, abilities like being able to remote monitor the boat, things like bilge alarms and water temps, camera systems. So as a planner, starting to look forward on how I would do things, I just instantly hit a block. And so first thing I'm doing is I'm shopping for what historically is the main piece of that equipment, which is an MFD or a multifunction display. B&G, Lowrance, Garmin, Simrad, great products. I love many of them for different reasons. Just looking at something mid-range that would have NMEA 2000 connectivity, that would be future-proof for things like OneNet, which is the future Ethernet-based systems. Just immediately hit a wall. Moderate MFD, right? Has the functionality, but not too big of a screen. $6,000 each. So I would probably have 2 of those in a pilot house and 2 of those on a fly bridge. Instantly. I'm at $24,000. It just seems crazy. I'm a guy that drives cars into the ground. Recently pretty much drove my old 12-year-old Tahoe into the ground until it was time to replace it. And so it reminds me of that, right? Those screens that we have in cars that are 10 years old, but even 5 years old and 3 years old, where you look at the screens and you look at the software and it's like, this stuff looks like it's from 2 decades ago. Meanwhile, today, I think I'm not an incredibly technical person, but I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good with mechanical systems, electrical systems, and understanding how software works, including if you show me once, I can pretty much figure it out. And so in doing that, this is all software today. And so let's take one of those MFDs that is $6,000. What you're paying for is the black box, right? The cost is not the software. The cost is certainly not the hardware. But I think you're still paying a premium for the research and development and the fact that it's a closed system. Meanwhile, let's look at other things. Screens that have 1,000 or 1,200 nits of brightness that are among the brightest screens that you could almost see in sunlight, that are available for a few $100s. Open source software that can do things that is essentially free. The interconnectivity, Ethernet gear, routers and switches and those things that are in the tens to hundreds of dollars. And so much of this is software, right? And I think you see that in something like a Tesla where, yes, the screens are elegant in those things, but it's really the user experience. It's really the software that's designed, and you can push a software update and give new features. Something that wasn't available and still isn't available on most cars today. Mostly as an experiment. I'm not saying I'm going purely open source, but I'm saying I want to research whether it's possible to do it. I started diving into open source projects. I found things like BBN and OpenPlotter and became quickly fascinated by them, powered off Raspberry Pis or cheap Intel Windows devices. I'm starting the open source boat project, and part 1 is what I'm calling free internet, and spoiler alert, no, it's not quite free. But what I want to do is create a base internet connection that has no incremental monthly charge. And so how I do it, why I call it free, is I've got a family plan. I've got 3 devices that are phones, but I had a 4th that I wasn't using. So got a SIM card, got a hotspot. Incrementally, it's costing me $0. It's all part of my family plan. Look, I know there's a cost to it, right? Could I use that as a base internet connection? No, it's not Starlink. No, I'm not running an Xbox on it. And have a connected boat that was reliable. So today we're starting part 1. And part 1 is the internet side of things, the router side of things. We're using a GL iNet Spitz as our base. I'm going to show you how we set it up. And we'll continue after part 1 into things like routers and switches, the Raspberry Pi base computer for the systems, and all of that connectivity going forward. I hope you enjoy it. I am needing to replace a 4G LTE hotspot I built for a pilot house boat a few months ago. And so eventually I'll probably do Starlink. I don't have the boat right now, by the way, so it's for the near future. But the idea is that I wanted a modem that had failover protection. So if I'm in the marina, I can pick up the marina's Wi-Fi. If I'm not in the marina, I can pick up cell through a SIM card. And if I do have Starlink in the future, I could accept that in as a WAN connection, and basically the router chooses what connection is fastest and gets priority. So I had in this kit a GL iNet Spitz running for months as a test, and one day it just was dead. Won't power up. I don't see any evidence of burning. I've opened it up. So I bought a new, or I should say I bought a used one off eBay, and I'm going to configure it as a replacement. It's kind of interesting. It comes with Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile SIM cards, I guess, which you just activate. So I had to do a fair amount of configuration on this thing to make this thing work on the AT&T network, and I am really hoping that I remember what I did. So let's start with putting the SIM card in, the new unit, and let's power it up. I believe I had the foresight to screenshot the configuration page, but I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? So go ahead and put its antennas on. Obviously, in my example, I have put them outside of the box. The idea is that I would run a 4G antenna with two connections up to the flybridge or the mast, and I would run a remote antenna up to a mast, essentially have antennas, 25 feet above. Did you know that only about 10% of you who watch these videos are subscribed to this channel? Take a look at this. We'd love to see you subscribe now. Click that bell. That'll tell you when the new videos come out. You'll see what we're working on next, which is pretty exciting. And we'd love to have you part of our community. 192.168.8.1. No user guide provided, so let's see what we get here for our setup. Okay, so I should be seeing a network. The other thing I'm going to do that I didn't do last time is this device apparently will save its configuration to an SD card. So separate from the SIM card, of course. But I'm going to go ahead and install a micro SD card. Guess what I found? I did screenshot it. So, again, the the GL iNet Spitz for AT&T, my settings were dev CDC WDM0, broadband as the type. Oh, look at that. AT&T shows a positive connection. Show transmission on here. I've acquired an IP address. I am moving data, 2 kilobytes up, 13 down, 4 up. So I am still on this network. I am. So if I go browse the internet, what happens? We have data. Let's just do a speed test out of the box here and see how we're doing. So I think I need to tell you how frustrating it was to talk to my provider, AT&T, about trying to connect this GL iNet Spitz. I don't think this is an AT&T thing. I think the experience would have been the same with T-Mobile or with Verizon. Chatting with their call center, calling people in the call center, you give them the device. Obviously they're working off a script and those things, and it's not in their system, and so they tell you it's incompatible. Well, I bought something that was clearly compatible with the base technology that AT&T uses. And so who's right and who's wrong? Hours of chat, tens and tens and tens of minutes of talking with AT&T support, and they ultimately said, yeah, you can't do this. But I kept tinkering, and that's where we got to where we got. And again, 4G, not 5G. It's a backup connection. I'm not expecting Starlink. I'm not expecting broadband. The key use of this would be for me to remote access the boat, to see data, to allow the boat to send me bilge alarms and those kinds of things. So, I mean, this is bare minimum, right? I actually have a screenshot from when I originally did this, and I was getting 15 down and 3.21 up. So now what I want to do is, if you look at the inputs on screen, cable, repeater, tethering. So I'm going to set up the repeater now. So I'm going to have it repeat my home Wi-Fi. So it should find my network, and it does. Joining. Okay, success. So now, if you look at my screen, we see Wi-Fi is on and AT&T is on. First option would be if I had a WAN or a WAN cable coming in for something like Starlink or a hardline. So again, I could have a third option. Now, assuming it's smart enough to understand which network to choose, let's do a speed test again. So it does see that I'm routing through Frontier, which is my internet provider. It is significantly faster, although not as fast as other areas of my house. I am a ways away from where my router is, and we're getting phenomenal upload speeds and pretty good download speeds. So it will fall back then on the SIM card if need be. I'm going to go ahead and enable auto upgrade. I'm going to rename my Wi-Fi SSID. I'll enable both the 2.5 and 5G networks. Why I think this might have failed. This was sitting inside this waterproof box. Again, I'm not going to have this in an environment where it's completely exposed to the elements, but I figure as much waterproof protection as I can get is better. And so I think it failed because it probably had no ventilation. It's got no moving parts, but still. So I'm going to modify this box and put an inflow and an outflow fan in there to move air through it. I don't like it because it's no longer watertight, but at the same time, I don't think it should be a problem because this is not going to be in a wet environment. It'll be under the pilot house helm. And so, all I'm doing is jumping the inbound and outbound Ethernet, a WAN line and a LAN line in and out. And then I bought these cables to extend and give me exterior connections for my antennas. And eventually, again, these get replaced with an antenna up to the bridge. And so this would run over to the rest of my network, WAN and LAN. And then I'll use my modified power cord, which is hardwired to a 12-volt connection to keep me from using a 110 or an inverter. All right, so I mentioned before that I had a modem that failed, and so this modem's been working great. You can see me picking up the local Wi-Fi signal. That's the fifth light. You can see me picking and broadcasting 2G and 4G. So I'm happy with it. So I'm going to get it back in the box. Two things I'm going to do differently this time. I had the box sealed. I think I had an overheat problem. So one is I'm not going to cover these back vents. I had some tape on there. So I'll stick this to here, put it in the box. And then two is I'm going to put an inflow fan to pull air in and an outflow fan to blow air out inside of the box too. Not wild about that because it's no longer waterproof. Obviously this is going to allow air through, but at the same time, it's not going to be in a really wet place, so I'm okay with it. We're going to set up a prototype of a boat. Let's give it 13.7 on the voltage. Sort of a high. We're in 13.69, 13.7. It'll work. We're imagining that this is our supply line coming from the batteries, from the house batteries. This line would be fused coming in based on amps to a dedicated fuse block, which would run all of the ship systems electronics that we're working on now.
Alright, so you've seen my former prototype box. So we're going to use this, but I need to now get the fans installed. So we're going to have to do something different here. Because we are also going to have two fans. So the two fans are going to live inside the box and push air in each direction. They are 12 volt. So let's see what direction they operate in. Alright, so they blow this way. So one's pulling air in, one's pushing air out. That I was afraid of. It's probably going to go somewhere around here. So let's just roughly measure that. We're going to go up 1.5 inches, and we're going to go in up 1.5 inches, in 1.75 inches. A little aggressive, but let's say fan's gonna blow through left to right. So we'll put one there. And we're going to put one there. Air blows in, air blows out. Not bad. This guy, one of my favorite tools, 19 bucks. At Lowe's. That one's blowing out, so this one is blowing in. So we're going to combine these lines. So those are the fans. Now we're going to reconnect the adapter. Get some heat shrink ready for these guys. All right, let's get this solder heat up. All right, Alright, we're coming up to temp. That's the first one. That's the second one. Two good connections. Got a little excess solder on here. If we now connect onto a fuse, it's a 5 amp fuse. WAN is the bottom. It's that one. It's that one. That's power. And we are booting. We're going to place this in the box and see how it does. So we're booting up now. 2 cable connections. So again, these will eventually go to a flybridge tower. So imagine these being antennas that are 20 feet higher than we are. Power, fan, WAN, LAN. So the WAN would be used if we bring Starlink into this router in the future. The LAN is going to go out to any other devices on the boat that need Ethernet. You can see we're generating 0.27 amps with this. So using this meter is going to also help me understand what my power requirements are. And we've got it. We are broadcasting. Alright, so we're going to mount this up to a board just to get it out of our workspace. Woo! Just hit the fan. We have the start. Power to the box. And the next thing we'll do, we'll get a LAN cable in there. This is going to go to our router. We got another T-Con, whatever you call this. We're going to put the Pi and its accessories, critical things in that. We'll get that going.
All right, so stay tuned for part 2. We're going to move into the base system. So we'll connect up a network. We'll get a Raspberry Pi connected with OpenPlotter. I'll tell you why I chose OpenPlotter over BBN. It's pretty cool where we go in the next series.